Well, hi, folks. Welcome to Buffett and Beyond Research Saturday ETF report, October 4th, 2025. And we're looking at the best ETF of the week. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's the healthcare sector. Surprise? Yeah, surprised me. But remember, if you want to walk on this beach like Jimmy Buffett used to do, you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. So let's look at this week, and we put in the top ETFs from the S&P 500, and we call them spider funds, like right here. They call them the spiders, and we put them all in, plus the QQQs, plus the S&P 500. And what came out on top? The XLV, the healthcare. And guess what's second? Semiconductor. Yeah, no surprise there. Utilities. People might be giving up some of their tech stocks or high flyers and getting into what they consider safer stocks. And then right after that was technology. So these three right here are doing almost the same thing, going up. QQQs, or NASDAQ 100, up 1.8%, and the S&P up almost 1.6%. And then down here, look at the bottom here, oil and gas and the energy. And boy, they were at the top of the list a few weeks ago. Remember when we did the report on them? So let's go further. Let's look at the XLV, which is the blue line, so the healthcare. Black line is the S&P 500. So the XLV, the healthcare ETF, was actually outperforming in the beginning of this year, when I just didn't think it was performing well at all, because it didn't perform well last year either. And let's go to 5 years, and you can see the blue line again is the XLV, black line is the S&P, and the S&P and the XLV were following each other pretty close until just about 2 years ago. This is last year between these lines here, and this is this year, and you can see the XLV just started underperforming, had a good day the other day, but that's about it. This is almost in the past 2 years, this has underperformed the S&P 500 by almost half. Yeah, 49.6% up over 5 years, but it all happened in the past 2 years, and 99% for the S&P 500. And then when we look at 10 years, it looks just like the 5-year chart, because it's the XLV stayed with the S&P 500 right up until the last 2 years. This is last year between these two lines, and then this is this year between these lines. Well, up until October 3rd anyway. So here we are, underperforming the S&P. Most of it was in the past 2 years. In fact, all of it was in the past 2 years. And these are the stocks that we had that we thought were the special ones in the XLV. Now, the XLV, the healthcare ETF, is up 7% for the year. The S&P 500, as of yesterday, was up 14.7%. So the S&P is outperforming by double the healthcare sector. As you could tell, before the past 2 years, it was performing as well as the S&P 500, but in the past 2 years, just has not been doing well. The stocks that we picked, the top 5 stocks, up 17.4%. So more than doubling the ETF itself, which is what the stocks with the highest ROEs are supposed to do, and they're doing it. And even more than the S&P 500, which has been spectacular so far this year. So our stocks are up 17.4%. Now let's go to the computer program and just go into the XLV. This is on the ETF computer program. So if you don't have that subscription, it might be nice to do it, because you could handpick some of these stocks. Like Obvi, we have in our dividend growth and income portfolio, and Eli Lilly we have in our dividend growth and income portfolio. But if you just went to the computer program, pick the top stocks that were over a 20% ROE, this is how they performed, and they averaged what? 17.6%. So they averaged even a little bit more, a tiny bit more than the stocks that we picked. So we're really close there, folks. So you didn't have to have as many stocks, but if you want to use the computer program yourself, just go and pick the top stocks. But you want to pick it from ETFs that have been outperforming or performing at least as well as the S&P 500. So when we look at the past, it's actually almost 7 years now, from 2019 to 2025, is 3/4 of the year over. The S&P 500 returned 169% on a compounded basis, where the XLV returned just 68%, less than half of the S&P 500. But our top stocks returned 172%, almost triple what the XLV did. So the top stocks from the ETF outperformed the ETF itself by a long shot over 6.5 years. So that's very, very nice. It stays with our theory that if you pick the top stocks or the better than average stock, you will outperform the ETF itself. Pick the best stocks in an ETF and you'll outperform the ETF just about every year. I can't think of a year where we haven't outperformed the ETF itself. And this shows it, almost 3 times that of the ETF over 6.5 years, 6.75 years now. So folks, we had a tumultuous week this week, and so go out and spend some of that money you made in the stock market, because we don't know how long it's going to last. So go out, enjoy yourself, be with your loved ones, have Sunday dinner together, but most of all, be safe, and we'll see you right back here in a couple of days.